Yeah, I'm wearing my Wonder Woman shirt again. I wore it last week, too, for my reviews. But I have seen the Wonder Woman movie now, so I feel like I have a more pertinent reason to be wearing it, which is just my roundabout way of asking you guys to let me know if you want a review of that movie. Granted, I don't really disagree with what a lot of the mainstream YouTube critics have been saying about it, so I don't know how much help my review of the movie would be, but let me know nonetheless. That said, let's move right into my review of Gravity Falls Season 2, Episode 4, I think? Sock Opera. Back in Into the Bunker, the group made off with a piece of technology, an old, battered, broken laptop. It's one of those things that I tend not to mention in these reviews until I know for sure that it's going to be brought up again. Not that I had any reason to assume that this show of all shows wouldn't bring it up again. But that's beside the point. Seuss has managed to get the laptop working again. Dipper and Mabel are at the Gravity Falls library getting ready to open it up and see what's inside. It is, however, password protected, and Dipper and Mabel must work together to try to figure out what the password is, except that Mabel gets distracted by a boy. I don't even remember the guy's name. He ran the puppet show at the library, and immediately he came off to me as a total douchebag. But Mabel, blinded by her enthusiasm, doesn't see that he's a total douchebag, and kind of crazy too. That becomes more and more apparent as the episode goes on, and puts aside everything, including helping her brother to impress this boy. She says she needs to put on a puppet show to impress this guy, and if Dipper will just put off trying to figure out the password for the next couple of days to help her, come the end of the week, she will help him to figure out the password. But it turns out that the two of them are not the only ones who are aware of this situation. Dipper is being followed by Bill's cipher. We see the shadow of Bill pass over a wall just after Dipper. And so the episode progresses, and while Mabel is writing the scripts and building the puppets for her upcoming sock puppet rock opera, because that's a thing now, we see Dipper staying up late into the night, still trying to work out what the password could be. It's an 8-figure password, so there are a lot of possibilities. And as Dipper becomes more tired and more desperate, he is approached by Bill in a dream, where Bill offers to give him a hint as to what the password could be. Dipper, of course, says no. He refuses to even so much as really listen to what Bill is saying, and he does mention that he had a dream of Bill and Mabel the next day. And despite that they both know how dangerous Bill is, when production of the additional puppets and the sets and whatnot starts going wrong, Mabel puts off helping Dipper even more. So when Bill approaches Dipper again, and all that Bill wants is a puppet, of which Mabel has plenty of extra, Dipper, without even really thinking about it twice, makes the deal, and he becomes Bill's puppet. His spirit is ripped from his body. He now lives in the dreamscape that Bill himself once lived in, and I would assume he exists in whenever he doesn't have a vessel, and Bill becomes Dipper. He announces that Dipper was getting too close to some very important answers. He destroys the laptop, and then he goes after journal number 3. Mabel inadvertently telling Bill in Dipper's body that she is using journal number 3 as a plot in the play. So now Bill in Dipper's body, indistinguishable by all the other characters from Dipper, is at Mabel's play, endangering all of Dipper's family and friends as well as the journal, which is obviously even more important now than we thought it was. And there's nothing that Dipper can do about it because he can't interact with any of them, I would assume, unless they're asleep. I would imagine he can probably interact with them if they're asleep, the same way that Bill could interact with him when he was asleep. But that's only speculation. Until finally he realizes he might be able to possess one of the sock puppets and use it to talk to Mabel. He explains the situation to her and explains that journal number 3 may be the only way he has of getting back into his own body. So he takes over the puppet show while Mabel goes to retrieve the journal from a set piece that will eventually be lowered down to the stage. But this is where she is confronted by Bill, who reminds her that she has a goal in mind, getting this boy's attention. He is really loving this play, and if she can just stick the landing, the two of them might end up together. But Mabel realizes that, surprise, surprise, because it's pretty obvious, Dipper's life is more important than a boy, and Dipper would make that sacrifice for her in a second. In fact, earlier, the second time that Bill confronted Dipper, he showed Dipper, or maybe Dipper just remembered, it's not 100% clear, several instances where he had sacrificed for Mabel. And it would seem that in this moment, Mabel remembers those same instances and comes to a revelation, an epiphany, if you will. And so Mabel ends up using her knowledge of Dipper's physical weaknesses, which was a hilarious scene, to defeat Bill, force him out of Dipper's body, and allow Dipper to retake it. And Mabel kind of rededicates herself to helping Dipper figure out the weirdness in the town. She admits that she should have been helping him. And like, if this were everyday twin stuff, everyday sibling stuff, that wouldn't necessarily be true. If Dipper, let's say, just wanted to write a book report or something and expected her to help, but she wanted to pursue a romantic interest, that would be one thing. She would have the right to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this thing for myself. But in this narrative, in this world, what Dipper is trying to do is incredibly important, especially now that we know that Bill is still active in this narrative. And Dipper making sacrifices for Mabel has been a recurring problem with this show that has kind of been annoying me, so I'm really glad that was addressed. Mabel seems so silly and goofy and distractible, and the things that distract her are so small compared to the things that Dipper is trying to do. It just came off as Dipper giving and never getting anything in return. I mean, they have a great sibling relationship. This is one of the best sibling relationships I've ever seen in TV. But it's also clear that there's a one-sidedness to certain aspects of their relationship. And seeing it addressed confirms that that's not an oversight by the writers. That's an intentional setup for character development, and I love that. Overall, that's pretty much what this episode was about. Yes, Bill featured heavily in the episode. We got to see how manipulative he could be. He approached Dipper when he was sleep deprived and therefore at his weakest. He approached Mabel and tried to use her weaknesses against her vices against her, to turn her against her brother, even if it was only temporary, even if it was only in that moment. And you could see her hesitate, so you know she actually thought about it. He still doesn't seem to be able to directly affect things in the physical world. And now we know what he wants. He wants a physical body. That's probably what he was trying to trade his services to Gideon for. Gideon's body. While I did find it annoying that he was set up as the archetype of creature that has to make deals with people and keep them, and yet when it came down to it, he didn't have to keep his deal with Dipper. While that did annoy me, it was never explicitly said that he had to keep the deal. So, at the end of the day, this doesn't go against continuity, and it actually makes Bill significantly more dangerous. And yet, this episode, like so many past episodes of this show, felt really centralized to Dipper and Mabel in their relationship. Yes, there was this greater supernatural element going on, and it was probably the greatest supernatural element in this show. But at the end of the day, what the episode did better than anything was build their relationship and develop their relationship. I only wish that it had turned out that the guy wasn't as much a douchebag as he was coming off to the audience at the end, the guy that she was interested in. Because by the time the end rolls around, she realizes how odd he is and that she wouldn't have wanted to be with him in the first place. I think it would have made a stronger statement if by the end she still wanted to be with him and still chose Dipper over him, didn't try to pursue him further in any way. But seeing her reaction when the guy literally started making out with his puppets was pretty good, so I'm not complaining. I'm also kind of annoyed that apparently, even though he was in the front row at the play, Stan apparently didn't hear Mabel yelling, "You angry little triangle," or whatever it was that she said. Because I would imagine he probably would have had a pretty profound reaction to that. What a bummer. Overall, this was a really good episode. It was great to check in with Bill as the antagonist and see where he is and what he's up to. It kind of sucks that they just got this laptop and now we don't really know anything that's on it. We did see a diagram on the load screen pop up that looked like the portal device, but that's it. That's the limit of what we saw. So that did come off as kind of a tease, which was frustrating to me, but it's fine. We've still got the journal. There are still the other two journals for Dipper to eventually see, I imagine he's going to see those at some point. And this episode came off as a foundation for some genuine Mabel character development, which I'm all for. I also want to really briefly talk about how hilarious Bill was in Dipper's body. I mean, Bill as an antagonist is equally terrifying and hilarious anyway. Like the scene with the screaming head, holy crap. Not going to say any more about it, just holy crap. But once he gets in Dipper's body and he's actually experiencing the sensations of having a physical body, he was just hilarious. In a kind of disturbing, dark way that this show really excels at, but still hilarious. I loved it. As per usual though, guys, I'd like to ask, what did you think of this episode? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.